As we all know, the situation in Guyana is a very special situation. Special on all fronts, political, economic, and of course, cultural. Even from so many hundred miles away, we can feel the pressures of the situation at home. And from all evidence, things have not been changing for the better. Many of us hoped 5 years ago that there would have been some significant shift for the better. Unfortunately, things don't seem to be moving in that direction. And so tonight, we hope that the Eusi would be able to elaborate on some issues which are very critical, and that we will be left with enough time for some questions and a general discussion. Accompanying the Eusi on the trip is the International Affairs Secretary of the WPA, Brother Wazir Mohamed. This is not Wazir's first visit to North America. He has been here before and has done a lot of good work on behalf of the movement. Seeing time is very important, I want to straight away ask Wazir to make the first address. Brother Wazir Mohamed.
Thank you, Brother David Hines. Sisters and brothers, I want to join with Brother Hines, who is a close colleague of mine. We struggled together in Guyana in the 80s, and I want to join with him this evening in welcoming you to this meeting of the Working People's Alliance. Brother Hines, as you know, is one of our political prisoners who spent some time in Burnaby jails. He was a special political prisoner. And tonight, I want to say to you that Brother Hines is out here, but he's a WPA member, and we should treat him that way. He is here studying and is expected back home sometime to continue the struggle. While here, we know he is part of the struggle, and we in Guyana feel his presence every now and again. We meet at a time when the world is changing in a very rapid way. Eastern Europe has happened. Nelson Mandela was freed yesterday. There are continuing changes in Southern Africa. There are expected changes in parts of Latin America. And as I said earlier, there are changes in Eastern Europe. It is within this context that we, the Working People's Alliance, finds ourselves at this time. And we believe that we are also part of that change and the changes that are taking place in the world, because those changes are likely to have an impact not only on us as political people, but on our destiny as Guyanese involved in struggle. Those changes that are taking place around us will have an impact on every one of us in this room. So the focus of our meeting tonight and the focus of our discussion is how are we as Guyanese citizens, first of all, as Caribbean citizens, secondly, and as citizens of the world, going to take advantage of the present situation in Southern Africa, the changes in Eastern Europe, and how we are going to use those changes to bring about changes in our own national condition. I can go on and on to describe the bad conditions in Guyana, because since the last time we spoke here, nothing has improved. things have gotten worse. There is a lot of sweet talk about economic recovery, about foreign investors going in, about some heaven down in Guyana. But the Hoyt bubble has burst. When we came here the last time, we said it is bursting. It has burst. The economic recovery program did not take off and cannot take off. It will only take off when Guyana returns to some level of democratic rule. There are several things, as I said to a meeting in Brooklyn last night, which are on the agenda, on the political agenda in Guyana at this time. Every aspect of Guyanese life is on the political agenda at this time, because every aspect of Guyanese life is in decay and is in disrepair. And we have to find the courage to organize. How is it when dictatorship, I feel, is in its last days in the world, we are going to attempt to organize our thoughts and actions on reconstruction, because we have to begin from now. I understand the theme of this afternoon's meeting is towards reconstruction in Guyana. I want to be very brief, because Brother Eusi, who is our co-chairperson and member of parliament, should have a chance to speak for a good while. But I want to bring to your attention a very important change which has taken place in our political climate. For the first time since the PNC came to power, we had the Burnham dictatorship and now we have the Hoyt dictatorship. For the first time, something has happened, and something significant has happened which we all need to discuss, understand, and use to bring the dictatorship to its knees and to bring back Guyana on the road of democracy. Many of you will be aware that after the rigging of the 1985 elections, on the insistence primarily of the WPA, the Patriotic Coalition for Democracy came into being. It came into being and brought together the 5 political parties of the opposition that were the losers, so-called losers in the elections. It also brought together the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church, who decided to sit within the coalition as observers of that political body. And the primary aim of that coalition was at that time, and still is at this time, to organize the people of Guyana and to organize the struggle to regain the right to free and fair elections. That is, to organize for electoral reform in Guyana. One of the first things that the coalition did was to say that it would like to negotiate with the government for electoral reform. On this score, the coalition wrote very early to President Hoyt, asking him for a meeting to discuss electoral reform. At first, he said, "Who are you?" He refused to recognize the coalition. Then suddenly, sometime early last year, he gave an interview in which, surprisingly, he said that he was willing to meet with the PCD, with the Patriotic Coalition for Democracy, if it names a spokesperson. The Working People's Alliance took up that report. And we went to the coalition and we said, here it is, the man is saying he will meet with the PCD if we appoint a spokesperson. Let us take him up and let us appoint a spokesperson. And we propose that the PCD appoint someone who is an independent person outside the bounds of the PCD, and we propose an independent lawyer. And the person we had in mind was Ashton Chase. That proposal was not accepted by the PCD parties. The PVP decided that Dr. Jagan should be the spokesperson, and the DLM decided that Mr. Paul Tennessee should be the spokesperson. The working group in a sort of deadlock. To break that deadlock, we decided to support Mr. Tennessee. The PVP vetoed that. And then we decided to support Dr. Jagan, and the DLM vetoed that. So the PCD couldn't arrive at a consensus on a person to lead a PCD delegation to meet with Mr. Hoyt. And that was the end of that. But before that, in December of 1988, the motion was circulated here. But Kwayana moved a motion in the National Assembly calling on the government to open national dialogue on a number of important issues and on democratization. The PNC, for its own purposes, brought that motion forward on December 20th of 1989, that is December 20th last, and for debate in the House. It was seconded by PVP, and it was supported unanimously by the government bench. 9 days after that, President Hoyt wrote to us, sent a dispatch rider of his office to deliver a letter to us at the WPA, inviting us to bring a delegation to elaborate, I'm using his own words, on the modalities contained in the motion. To give him our views on how we see the dialogue taking place. We replied immediately, acknowledged the letter, and said that you will hear from us shortly. We then proceeded, we issued a public statement that we were consulting with our fellow colleagues in the opposition and other social and human rights organizations in Ghana. We then proceeded to consulted the PCD parties, and they said they had no objection, and that we could say publicly that they had no objection. We consulted the private sector, we consulted church organizations, we even consulted political parties outside of the PCD. We then decided to put in writing our views on how the dialogue should be conducted and send it to the President before the meeting. That is also circulated. But we propose that the dialogue should be conducted by a multi-organization secretariat, which should include representatives of all the political parties in Guyana, the private sector groupings, and the trade union groupings in particular. And we propose that the dialogue should be conducted in round-table sessions so that we sit down, all of us, face to face, and discuss the present problems of Guyana and how is it we are going to come out of those problems. Because the discussions that have to take place do not only have to do with political matters. They have to do with education, they have to do with health, they have to do with sanitation, they have to do with the economy, they have to do with every aspect of Guyana's life. We had a meeting with him, we circulated the release after the meeting. He accepted that he was committed to a national dialogue, And he has since gone public in his address to the National Assembly of his acceptance of the national dialogue, and that there are likely to be changes coming out of the dialogue. He said he had to consult other people, and of course we agree with that, because we believe he should consult other people, all parties. He should consult all the important organizations in Guyana on how the dialogue should be conducted. But I want to make this point, because it's a point which we have had to make in Guyana. And only yesterday I was looking at the news coming out of Southern Africa, and even the ANC is saying that what we are discussing with the clerk is how to talk. That is all we are discussing with her. We have to defend. A lot of people in Guyana are saying that we are already in dialogue. We are not in dialogue with the PNC. We are discussing with the PNC how to talk. We are not in dialogue. No substantive issues except how to talk has been raised with the president, or was raised with the president in the meeting. We believe that the dialogue is important. We believe it's the first chink, real chink in the door, and that we must use that chink to push the door open. And in that, all of us, as Guyanese, whether we are at home, whether we are abroad, have a duty to play a part in that. We must all find a way to play a part in pushing the PNC towards the bargaining field. Sisters and brothers, the Working People's Alliance is a party, as you know, of old, of young, of all races in our country. It is a party that is growing every day. It is not a party that is dying. The Working People's Alliance, I know Brother Kwayana wouldn't say this, but in my estimation, and in the estimation of Guyanese, is the most important political force in Guyana. And I want to make this point because it's important for us to understand that what the Working People's Alliance represents is a new political culture. The Working People's Alliance is the only political organization in Guyana that is multiracial in its outlook, in its approach to politics and life in Guyana. It is the only organization that is against one-man rule and the cult of the personality in politics. It is the only organization that is against political tribalism and has fought against political tribalism and racism in our society. We have had to combat different forms of barbarism. And I call on you here tonight to remain close to the Working People's Alliance. And more importantly, to remain close to the democratic movement of Guyana. Because when I say remain close to the Working People's Alliance, all of us have a duty to make the Working People's Alliance strong and stronger. Because if the democratic movement is to succeed in Guyana, the Working People's Alliance will have to be kept strong and kept alive. Yeah.
Thank you, Wazir. A couple of announcements. One, as I mentioned before, Eusi will be speaking tomorrow night at Blackburn Center, Howard University across the road, and he will be speaking on recent political developments in the Caribbean. Touching on the talks which Wazir, or the attempt to talk which Wazir spoke about just now. I want to assure you that it has never been the policy of the WPA to do anything in secret. If ever and whenever those talks come about, we will do so with the public being well informed at every step. Before we go forward, I want to pay tribute to Evergreen Productions the cultural group that performed before we started this part of the rally. Evergreen Productions operate in the Washington, D.C. area, and they have over the years done a tremendous job in keeping alive the Caribbean culture. I want us to give them a warm round of applause. We in the Working People's Alliance, over the years, have suffered tremendously in one way or the other. We've always stuck to our task. We lost Brother Walter Rodney 10 years ago. It seems as though it was only yesterday, but it was 10 years ago. And our activists have always not been given a fair chance to demonstrate their true potential, because we've always been hunted down by the dictatorship. Recently, one of our most gifted activists passed away. And the sad thing about it was that not many Guyanese knew how important a human being, how talented a human being that brother was. We're speaking about Brother Brian Rodney, long-time political fighter in Guyana, a brother whose artistic talents were second to none, a very deep political thinker, very vigorous activist, and an important asset he was to the struggle in Guyana. Like I said, he passed away a few weeks ago. I want to call on you to stand for a minute and observe 1 minute of silence for Brian Rodney. The history of Guyana will have been properly documented. We hope that the contribution of one of its sons will be given its proper place. Our experience to date has been that there are some people whose contributions are never given the full weight and the full force that it deserves. Brother Eusi Kwayana is one of those persons who over the last 45 years has worked ceaselessly for the liberation of humanity. His base of operation happened to be in Guyana. But the Eusi Kwayana represents more than just a Guyanese freedom fighter. He's a fighter on behalf of all of humanity. He has made contributions on all fronts in Guyana. We know him most popularly as a political fighter. A lot of us will also know him as a teacher. But a Eusi is in every sense a person who touches every aspect of people's lives. He's a playwright, a cultural person, one who is committed to the family structure. He's a human being who all of us would want to emulate at some point or the other. I want us to recognize the contribution that the Eusi has made and to draw from his example strength so that we can carry on with the lifelong struggle of liberation of the human being. It is against this background that I call on Eusi to address us.
sisters and brothers. I want to join with Brother Hines in the tribute he paid to Brian Rodway. It is an unspeakable loss, not only for the Working People's Alliance, but for the forward-looking movement in Guyana. He's a man of culture, in the true sense of the word, fully in touch with all the latest developments in science and philosophy throughout the world, and at the same time a very humble person. He left a widow and 2 children. And here again we have the task of carrying on and expanding his work. There are many little strands I want to begin with. I want also to join in tribute to the Evergreen performers, whom I know quite well in their artistic work. But I also want to say that in the Working People's Alliance, we do not put the names of people in songs, except they are dead. So in Guyana, we would say they call him dead for me. As politely as I can, I want to seek leave to disagree with those lines. In considering what to speak on within the theme, I thought of talking about the culture of dictatorship. But also we want to give you information. And one of the songs sung by Evergreens tonight, which fits in very clearly well for the Wazir Mohamed and I have to say to you, is the one that went, "You have a job to do." This is how we spoke in Brooklyn to the non-resident diaries and others only yesterday. Another preliminary remark I must make, because it has not yet been brought forward, is to say that we are here on a fundraising visit. And Brother Hines, in describing, trying to say something about me, which I don't think was so necessary, fell in with some other people in the United States of America. One of them referred to me as Professor Kwayana. And I have to begin my talk by telling them I've never been a professor and have no ambitions in that direction, and also no chance of ever being a professor. And then today I hear here I was described as doctor. Now you may take a lot of Brother Hines' remarks in the same light. He did not actually find a new title, but his remarks were very overdrawn, to say the least. Brother Wazir Mohamed has spoke to you very briefly and put you in the context of how things are developing in Guyana. The thing I wanted to mention was that we have to call on you for a collection tonight. I'm really begging for a part of my tickets for which money was borrowed. And if the collection here does not fill the bill, I don't quite know what the bill is. There are people here who would know. We have to take from what I've earned for the Working People's Alliance and buy back this part of this ticket. I mention it only so that you may consider it carefully. These days of budgetary problems for all of us, including the United States government. Briefly, in Guyana we live to this date in the culture of the dictatorship. And I'm taking this line because this is Afro-American History Month. Last week I was in Boston on the territory of Crispus Attucks and had to reflect that The initial moves made by a small group of non-citizens at the time, I believe, including this black man, Crispus Attucks, is in fact the cultural and spiritual foundation on which this industrial complex